I want to tell you something about washing clothes. It's something we learned at home years ago through practice, not from a book. It has worked well for us, so I'll share it with you plainly, no dressing it up. Think for a moment about a towel you use often, one that's been around a few months. Over time, it stops drying the way it used to. You step out of the shower, run the towel over your body, and the water doesn't go anywhere. It just sits there, sliding around, as if the fabric were made of something else. You dry off and you're still wet. Almost everyone has noticed this at some point, even without knowing why it happens. The first thought that comes to mind is that the towel is old, worn out, or a bad brand. You even think about throwing it out and buying a new one. But that's not really it. In most cases, the fabric softener you buy at the store leaves a layer of grease on the cloth. With every wash, that layer builds up a little more, without you noticing. And that layer clogs the pores of the cotton. That's why the towel no longer absorbs the way it used to. The fabric isn't bad, it's just coated, as if someone had brushed a layer of wax over it. Something similar happens with work clothes, though it shows up differently. You wash the shirt well, let it dry in the sun, and within days it smells of sweat again. That happens even though it was just washed. That's also tied to that layer of wax. It traps moisture and leftover sweat deep inside the fiber, where it stays hidden. This happens even though the clothes look clean and smell fine right out of the washer. My name is Levi Miller. I live out in the country, in a community where we make do with what's on hand. We don't buy something new just because a new product showed up at the store. We'd rather use what we already know, what has worked for years. That's better than spending money on something when we don't even know what's really in it. That's how we were raised, and that's how we've raised our own. I'll explain how we wash clothes at home, without the bottled softener sold in stores. It's not a complicated formula. It's simple, just 2 steps, using things most people already have in the kitchen, or things you can get cheaply at any store in town. My wife Sarah and I have been married more than 40 years. Over the years, you learn to pay close attention to what comes into the house, not out of distrust, but because you want to know what you're using every day. That includes what touches your own skin and your children's skin. My father used to tell me something I've never forgotten, and I still tell my own children. If you can't pronounce the name of what you're putting on your body, food, or clothes, don't bring it home. It's a simple piece of advice, but it has served me well my whole life. I believe it serves anyone, no matter where they live. Now, let's talk about that softener almost everyone keeps in the laundry closet. That thick liquid, blue or pink, that you pour into the wash every week almost out of habit. The first thing to understand is that it isn't soap. It doesn't clean anything. You might think it helps get your clothes cleaner, but that's not the case. What it does is coat the fabric in a layer of grease and silicone, with perfume for a while. At first, that layer makes the clothes feel soft to the touch. That's why people keep buying it. The immediate effect seems good. You touch the freshly washed clothes and they feel nice and soft. But over time, that same layer is what ruins the fabric. Sheets and towels get rougher, even when you keep washing them with the same product, even if you use more of it trying to fix the problem. In the old days, cotton sheets in a house would last 20 or 30 years. They passed from one person to another in the family and grew softer with use, not rougher. Now you buy new sheets and within 2 years they're rough, pilling, even tearing at the corners. That's not chance or bad luck. The wax that keeps building up weakens the fiber from the inside. It doesn't show on the outside right away, and by the time you notice, the damage is already done. You also have to think about the water you wash with. If your house has hard water, meaning water with a lot of calcium and magnesium, soap won't dissolve well. It leaves behind a residue, a kind of paste, that sticks to the fabric. Clothes come out of the washer stiff, hard, almost like cardboard, even with plenty of soap. It's a bit like dry ground in summer after a long stretch without rain. If you water that dry ground, the water doesn't soak in, it just runs off somewhere else. Something similar happens to fabric hardened by mineral buildup. The water and soap can't get into the fiber, they just stay on the surface. If you're not sure whether your water is hard, there's an easy way to tell without buying anything. Check if there's a white ring left around your kettle after boiling water a few times. Check also whether hand soap struggles to lather, or leaves a slippery film that won't rinse off. That's almost always hard water. Out in the country, with well water, it's even more common. The water passes through the ground and picks up those minerals before it reaches the house. Bottled softener doesn't fix that underlying problem. All it does is cover the hardness with a layer of wax, so it feels soft for a while. Underneath, the fabric is still damaged. It's like painting over a cracked wall instead of fixing the crack. It looks fine for a while, but the problem is still there underneath. Now let me explain how we solve this at home, without that product. It's just 2 ingredients, nothing more. Baking soda and white vinegar. Ordinary things that anyone recognizes and knows where they come from. But there's something important you need to know before you start. It's a mistake I see people make often, even those with good intentions. Many people think it's best to mix vinegar and baking soda in the same jar ahead of time. Stir them together and store the mix ready to use later, like making a sauce. That doesn't work, and it's important to know that before you try it. If you combine vinegar and baking soda in one container, it will foam and bubble up. The mixture grows, and it can even overflow the jar if you use too much. It looks like something powerful is happening, as if the mix were getting stronger. But that's not the case. The acid in the vinegar and the base in the baking soda are canceling each other out. That happens right there, right in front of you. Once the foam settles, what's left in the jar is just salty water, nothing else. Neither the baking soda nor the vinegar works anymore. Both lost their function before ever touching the clothes. You'll have used up both ingredients and ended up with water that does nothing. That's why you use them at different points in the wash, each in its own step. Never mix them ahead of time or store them together in the same jar. Since we're on the subject of things that shouldn't be mixed, here's another one. This one is more serious than the baking soda issue. Never use this vinegar mix in a load of laundry where you've also added chlorine bleach. Vinegar is an acid, and mixed with chlorine it releases a gas that's harmful to breathe. This is especially true in a closed laundry room. There's no problem washing one load with bleach and a separate load with this mix. What you must not do is put them together in the same wash. I'm telling you plainly because it's something you should know, not to scare you. Keep it in mind the same way you'd keep in mind never leaving a stove burning unattended. The first step uses baking soda, and it goes in the main wash, not the rinse. When you load the washer, add half a cup of baking soda straight into the drum. Add it along with the soap you normally use. There's no need to switch soap or buy anything special or expensive. Your usual soap, the one you already have at home, works fine. This works the same in old top-loading washers and in newer front-loading ones that use less water. Baking soda doesn't create extra suds, so it won't cause a problem in any washer. That includes modern machines that call for special low suds detergent. While the clothes are washing, the baking soda helps soften the water. If your water is hard, baking soda neutralizes some of that hardness. That lets the soap get deep into the fabric, lifting out grease, dirt, and sweat. It also keeps minerals from sticking to the fibers. It's a simple step, you just have to remember to add it when the wash starts. Over time, it becomes routine, just like any other part of doing laundry. The second step uses vinegar, and that goes in the rinse, not the wash. This vinegar isn't used alone, it's mixed with a little salt. That gives you a mixture that will last for several washes. To prepare this mix, grab a clean glass jar, the kind you'd save from the kitchen. Pour in 2 cups of distilled white vinegar, the plain kind sold cheaply anywhere. Here's a clarification worth making. Use distilled white vinegar, not apple cider or any tinted vinegar. White vinegar is clear and doesn't stain anything. Apple cider vinegar has a brownish tone that, with repeated use, can leave marks on light clothing. That's especially true for white towels. For this purpose, white vinegar is the one that works. Next, add 2 tablespoons of coarse salt. It can be sea salt or Epsom salt. Either one works equally well. Here's another important clarification. Don't use fine table salt with added iodine or anti-caking powder. That fine salt, with the iodine, can sometimes leave dark spots on dark clothing. That happens especially if the mix sits concentrated on one spot before it dissolves in the rinse water. Coarse salt, without those additives, doesn't cause that problem. Stir it with a spoon, a wooden one if you have it, until the salt fully dissolves in the vinegar. That's the whole base mixture, nothing more is needed for it to work. If you like, and this is a matter of personal taste, you can add 15 or 20 drops of essential oil. At home we use lavender for the sheets since it helps with a better night's rest. Sarah likes that scent when she goes to bed. For work clothes, we use lemon or eucalyptus, which leave a fresher scent after a long day. But this is only for the smell. It doesn't change how well it cleans. If you don't have essential oils on hand, that's fine. The mix works the same without them. It's not a required step. Once the mix is ready, store it covered, somewhere out of direct sunlight. It lasts for months without spoiling, since vinegar and salt don't go bad. That said, I recommend labeling the jar, even by hand, so no one mistakes it for something in the kitchen. With children in the house, it's best to keep things clearly marked. Even knowing it wouldn't cause real harm if swallowed by mistake, it's still uncomfortable. You might wonder if the clothes will end up smelling like vinegar, like a salad or a pickle jar. That doesn't happen. Vinegar is a mild acid, and once the clothes dry, whether in the sun or the dryer, the smell disappears completely. No trace is left behind. The air carries it away. What remains is clean fabric, without the heavy perfume of store-bought softeners. That perfume sometimes even gives people headaches if they're sensitive to strong scents. When the washer reaches the rinse cycle, that's when you use this mix. Pour half a cup into the compartment where you used to put the store-bought softener. No extra steps are needed, and nothing changes about how the machine works. The washer distributes the liquid the same way it did with bottled softener at the same point in the cycle. During the rinse, the vinegar does important work. It dissolves leftover soap residue on the clothes, along with mineral deposits from hard water. If the clothes already carry old softener wax from months or years back, the vinegar removes it gradually. This happens wash after wash. It's not an overnight change, but it shows with steady use, especially on towels and bedding. Generally, if clothes have years of built-up softener, it takes about 4 or 5 washes with this method. That's how long it takes for the fiber to be completely free of that old wax. You'll notice a difference right from the first few washes. But the full change comes with steady use, not a single wash. The salt, for its part, helps the fabric return to its natural shape. It also helps keep colors from fading as quickly in the wash. If you have black or dark clothes that turn dull after several washes, salt slows that down. Colors stay strong for longer. With very delicate clothes, like wool or a hand-knit garment, use half of what I've described. A 1/4 cup instead of half a cup, since those fibers are finer and need less. If it's your first time trying this on something valuable, something you care for especially, test it first. Try it on a hidden seam or an unseen corner, just to be sure the color won't do anything odd. Do that before washing the whole piece. So here's the routine laid out plainly, so you don't miss a step. First, load the washer and add half a cup of baking soda along with your usual soap. Close the door and start the wash as you normally would, without changing the program. Then, when the rinse cycle comes, add half a cup of the vinegar and salt mix. Use the same mix you prepared in the glass jar, poured into the compartment where softener used to go. That's all there is to it. There are no hidden steps, nothing else to add. You don't need to buy any special device or a new washer. It's important not to overdo the amount. I've seen people think that if half a cup works well, a full cup will work twice as well. That's not the case. Half a cup of baking soda in the wash and half a cup of the vinegar mix in the rinse is enough for a full load. Using more doesn't improve the result, it just wastes more than necessary without any real benefit. If your family is large and your loads run fuller than normal, 3/4 of a cup of each is enough. There's no need to go all the way up to a full cup. If you do laundry several times a week, as is normal in a house with kids, it helps to make a bigger batch. Prepare the vinegar and salt mix in a larger amount all at once. You can double or triple the recipe using a bigger jar so you're not remixing it every few days. Kept well covered, it stays effective for several weeks. Besides caring for the clothes, this method also helps the washer itself. Bottled softener leaves a sticky buildup inside the drum, on the rubber seals and in the hoses. Over time, that buildup starts to smell, a musty odor you sometimes notice when opening the washer. That's especially true after it's been closed for a while. The vinegar, with each rinse, gradually breaks down that layer. Over time, the washer stays cleaner inside, without that trapped smell. It also helps, every so often, to wipe down the drawer where you add soap and softener. Do the same with the rubber gasket on the door if you have a front-loading washer. Old softener residue collects there too, even after you've stopped using it. That residue can keep marking new clothes if it's not cleaned out. Wiping it down once a month is enough. No need for more than that. As for cost, this method pays off too, and that's no small detail. A gallon of white vinegar is cheap at any store, and baking soda and coarse salt are inexpensive too. They're some of the cheapest products you'll find on any shelf. With those 3 ingredients, you're set for months of laundry. You'll spend far less than you would buying bottled softener every week or month. And since clothes last longer without wearing out, you also save on replacing them so often. By the end of the year, that adds up to a noticeable sum. Keep the baking soda and salt in a dry place, in a sealed container or a jar with a lid. If moisture reaches them, they clump up and become harder to use. They don't need refrigeration or any special care. Keeping them dry is enough. They'll last a long time without going bad. If you have towels that no longer absorb well or sheets that feel rough, try this for a couple of washes. See how they turn out. You don't need to wait weeks to notice a change. You can feel it, especially in the towels, which start soaking up water again instead of letting it slide off. That sliding off feeling comes from acting like a waxed surface. Something else we've noticed over the years is that children's clothing responds well to this change. Kids' skin is more sensitive, and it often reacts well once you switch away from bottled softener. Many times, unexplained rashes and itching start improving on their own without doing anything else. I'm not saying that happens for everyone. Each person is different. But it's something we've seen in several families we know. I can also tell you this method works the same for bedding, towels, work clothes, and everyday clothes. There's no need to change the formula depending on what you're washing. Half a cup of baking soda in the wash, half a cup of the vinegar mix in the rinse, always the same amount. That applies to any full load except wool and delicate garments, which need less, as I mentioned. If you live somewhere with especially hard water, the clothes may take a little longer to feel different. That's because you're clearing out years of mineral and wax buildup. But with steady washing, the difference grows more noticeable. Eventually, the clothes behave the way they did when they were new. Since we're on the subject of well water, here's another useful tip. If your water has iron in it, white shirts or light sheets often come out with an orange tint. That shows up especially around collars or folds. Vinegar alone won't remove that. For those iron stains, rub the spot with a little lemon juice and salt before washing. Let it sit in the sun for a few minutes, then wash as usual using the steps already explained. This isn't part of the daily routine. It's only for when that particular stain shows up. If you prefer the dryer instead of hanging clothes outside, we use wool dryer balls. You toss them in with the wet clothes. They keep the clothes from bunching up in the dryer, so they dry more evenly. They also cut down on the static cling that makes clothes stick together. They're not required, the clothes come out fine without them. But if you want that extra touch, that's another natural option, with nothing chemical in it. At home, we've washed this way for years, without bottled softener, and we've had no complaints. The clothes last, they don't stiffen up, and we don't overspend on products we barely understand. It's a simple method, the kind you learn once and keep for good. There's no need to check instructions every time you do a load. I'm not saying this is the only right way to do things, or that everything else is wrong. Each person knows their own home and their own way of living. But if you're interested in trying something different, something cheap and quick, this is how we do it. I can tell you honestly that it has served us well for many years. That's what we do at home. Have a good afternoon, and good luck with the wash.